All right, so Ken Carson just dropped More Chaos, an album that he's been teasing for over a year. Now, fans had high expectations for this album after Ken blew everyone's away last time with the Great Chaos. However, this time things are different in a couple of ways. For one, the reception has been really mixed. The album's quality is noticeably different. I'll explain, by the way. And honestly, there were a lot of things Ken could have done differently. So I'm going to give you some context about this whole album, go over fan critiques, and then tell you what I think of More Chaos. Now, before I even go into anything the fans have said, I'm going to start off by just saying this album was cool, but for me personally, it just didn't hit different. It was kind of like, all right. But anyways, let me explain what happened. So about 24 hours ago, Ken Carson dropped his 22-track album, More Chaos. And just by the number of tracks itself, you can already kind of tell that it's going to be a little bloated, but, it's just a game, Everyone's trying to sell as much as they can first week, so I'm not going to say anything about that. Anyways, once you actually go into the album itself, you realize that this album is not that much different from A Great Chaos. In fact, it's almost like an extension of the deluxe. It's like a bit more polished, But to me, when I'm listening to these songs, I would just say straight up, the ones that are more melodic stand out to me. Maybe that's just my ear's preferences. I'm not going to call out certain songs. But in general, the whole tape was kind of haphazard. It was like, I felt like it was all like mushed together. You know what I mean? It was just a bunch of songs, and they were they're so similar, and there's just not much to differentiate any of them. There's no real song that has an identity. Now there is one song with Cardi and Lone where it's like, oh, that's cool. And I'm not gonna lie, Ken had the worst part in it to me. Honestly, I feel like Destroy Lonely and Cardi washed him on it, but still a cool song. It's their first official song together on all platforms. And, there were like a bunch of grails, but that means more to Ken fans, So I'm going to continue my review of the whole album, but let's just go into some random, tweets about the album. More Chaos felt like an upgraded version of X, more than a sequel to AGC. So this is kind of what I said. Honestly, I disagree with it. That's all I can say. Someone said, I'm a grown-ass man, and you want me to call you Lord of Chaos. And he also made like a Batman reference, and if you have seen that clip, kind of makes sense. Somebody also said, let's talk about this run. Let's talk about it. I would actually say that this run explains Ken's arc with albums. So the first album is called Teen X, and it was cool. And then that album afterwards is called Teen X Relapsed. I would say this is the only time between albums where Ken actually evolved. If you heard Teen X, it wasn't like an insanely good, it wasn't really like a great project. It was just a cool EP. The best song is Yale. I like Pissed Off too. But in Teen X Relapse, you can actually hear a lot of growth. Like Butterfly was and High as shit. Those are really creative beats, and Ken's blow and delivery on that was great as well. Then he dropped Project X. To me, Project X is still his best album, just because it has 11 tracks and it feels like a perfect project. It has a cohesive theme. It has like those chill songs. It has like one or two of those more turnt songs. It's one of those albums where everyone will have their own favorite. You know what I mean? And I don't know, he just did a really good job with that era. I feel like his creative direction at that time was he was doing a good job of not being like too corny, but still like pulling from certain inspirations and making everything seem cool. He did a really good job of just like, I feel like his swag was more him back then. He was this goofy guy. Oh, I just like to party. I'm on like this teen young you know what I mean? And his music was just very fun, right? Then he dropped X. That's the next album. That's with, him flipping everyone off. Now, this album was cool, but it was like an extension of Project X. You know what I mean? There was like some gay production. It was a lot of the same producers. It was cool, but, and Ken grew significantly from Project X to X. It was cool. Not like that much, but he grew. So I guess people kind of dealt with it, but it definitely wasn't a highlight. It's not the highlight in his catalog. Now then he drops A Great Chaos. Now we can all agree A Great Chaos is what really put Ken on the map. So blew him up. Jennifer's Body, Finding My Demons, Singapore, Asukaba, am I tripping? Whatever. Paranoid, that snippet was so, that was like such a grail with him and Destroy Lonely. The Uzi song was cool. Nightcore was cool. Green Room was cool. Honestly, it was 17 tracks. And it was a little, a couple of those songs could have been cut, but it's a good project. His Deluxe, also great. Mewtwo, Sydney Sweeney, whatever. I'm going a little too deep into this. Anyways, the point I was trying to make is A Great Chaos, just how X was an extension of Project X. That's what More Chaos feels like to A Great Chaos. The thing is, A Great Chaos dropped October 13th, 2023, and it's currently April 10th, 2025, all right? So 1.5 years, right, has passed. Project X dropped July 22nd, 2021, and X dropped July 7th, 2022. So about a year, so it's not like a crazy bump, but I will say everybody was expecting a little more growth. I don't know why, because if you, like Ken Carson, one thing he does is he previews a lot of snippets. Like he's always previewing snippets, but yeah, I guess people just expected this album to have more of an identity. I feel like aesthetic wise, he did this thing where he leaned into the whole like gore core or whatever, you know, like there's a song called Live Leak on the album, which in my opinion is kind of corny. Like, all right, cool, you know. I fuck with the aesthetic though, but it's just like nothing crazy. By the way, I do think X has some strong songs, you know, like Freestyle 2, that was going crazy on TikTok. Music. This was when like him and Destroy Lonely were like coming up together. MDMA, super hard. Intro, super hard. South Beach, going. I like those songs. Nothing against that. And even this album, More Chaos, that he just dropped, a lot of good songs on there. Yeah, just not, you know, nothing crazy. The day of the album, Ken posted these 2 fit pics. He always does this thing where he like looks away. And I don't know. These just look like normal fit pics for Ken. He has a bunch of chrome on. The patches. Honestly, I wonder how much this entire fit costs. Probably like, I don't know. I'm honestly like the last person you should be asking about this. I wonder let's say the jewelry costs like 50K. Am I tripping? I don't know how much that chrome beanie costs. Look at all the patches. It gotta be like, all right, the denim is definitely, yeah, I honestly have no idea. And then he got like cash on the ground. Cool. He also reposted or posted that More Chaos went #1 on Apple Music. Good for him. Offset finally acknowledged, or not finally, but he acknowledged Ken Carson. If you know the lore, basically like Ken, like a long time ago, I think this was like the Lost Files era, previewed a song with, I'm pretty sure it was, previewed a song with Offset, and he was like, I don't know who that is, and yeah, not great. But there's also another song on More Chaos that was also cool. It's a song called Ghoul, and it's produced by Pierre Bourne. And if you know like the lore behind this, Ken and Pierre had this beef because basically Pierre didn't want to work with him. He thought he was above him. I'll show you the screenshots. It's all news, but seems like they're all cool now, so that's cool. But here's the thing. More Chaos debuted with less first day streams than A Great Chaos. When I first saw this, I almost didn't believe it. I was like, damn, for real? And then as I started thinking about it, it started to make a little more sense. So anyways, let's read this headline. Ken Carson's More Chaos earned 10.9 million streams on its first day on Spotify. His previous album, A Great Chaos, debuted with 14 million streams. And, you know, on Twitter, people were like, damn, no way. The first thing, actually, I'm going to read some comments. It's interesting. The drones left, fire emoji. And the first, like, very clear thing everybody was saying was, never compare this man to Yeat, please. He had more TikTok hype for AGC, but this album better in my eyes. Did worse than Yeat's lifestyle. Crazy. Damn, he had all the hype. What the hell? All the white TikTok fans are gone. Damn. And if you don't know, I feel like Ken and Yeat have had a lot of tension. There was this one post where it was like Ken Carson has passed like 1 billion streams total on Spotify, and then it was posted on Kirko, and then Yeat's team or whatever like posted Yeat has 4 billion streams or like 8 billion streams everywhere. But it wasn't just Spotify, it was everywhere. But you know, fans aren't gonna like think that deeply. So it made it look like he him. And obviously Yeat is a bigger artist, but I'm just saying there's definitely been these comparisons. The artists themselves definitely have some beef. By the way, they used to be cool. They had like songs together that are out and everything. But the fans are even crazy. Like they're constantly, honestly, the last time I feel like in this lane of music, like new SoundCloud, where fan bases were really comparing, and don't even, honestly, if you were there back then, you kind of get it, is like Cardi and Uzi. When Uzi was the bigger artist, but everyone's like, oh, Cardi's like more fire, and you know, they'd get jealous and whatnot. Anyways, this fan provided some more context. For reference, Lifestyle did 19.1 million in the first 24 hours of tracking. 2093 did 21.9 million. In other words, both Yeat's last albums did double of what Ken's just did. You know, they both regress slightly, and I honestly think that's because like both of these guys' sounds were very disruptive. You know, they're new to a lot of these listeners, and TikTok made them very big, and you know, obviously like cosigns from certain people or whatever, and just this scene got bigger with Cardi's Whole Lotta Red and whatnot. But I feel like what's going on here, at least just the streams dropping, just audience fatigue. I feel like it'll never hit the same, no matter, even if it's like a better product. Because you know, if you listen to More Chaos, some of the songs are like better than A Great Chaos or the Deluxe. But you know, since the project doesn't differentiate itself enough you know, if you go back and compare to when you first heard A Great Chaos, it's just not going to compare. Because think about the jump from X to Great Chaos versus A Great Chaos to More Chaos. One is miles ahead. Someone said, somehow Ken better outsell Yeet though. Yeah, maybe he does, you know? Anyways, Bobblehead made a point on Twitter that I want to speak about. Ken Carson's label barely did any promo for this album. More Chaos could have been much bigger, but they relied solely on his motion. What are labels even for at this point? Told the label, I'm lit, I don't need no promo. Come on, Bob, it ain't always about numbers, music, business. Dropping a month after Cardi and his machine is on full force was def a choice. Cardi basically did it himself too. The only promo was him calling Kai Cenat and the played out graffiti lol. They barely did anything for AGC. I think Jennifer's Body is what it helped it grow. It organically became a meme sound on TikTok and encouraged people to go check out the full project. Hence why everyone clowns on Ken's fan base, because white guys go listen. My point still stands. Can't expect to catch a moment every time by himself within a week of the rollout. Now I somewhat agree and somewhat disagree. I feel like the one thing Ken Carson does really well is engage with his fan base. Like, he does a bunch of giveaways with his fan pages. He like sends stuff to Kai Cenat. He I don't know, he just like they've really built out his communities on all these platforms really well. What I will say though is they failed to capture specific moments. Like, I can't think of like a certain moment except maybe what's that one, like Money Spread snippet. They failed to capture like certain moments, and it all just feels like a blur, and people were waiting for it. And I remember like a couple of dates being canceled and him lying about this and that. But I feel like More Chaos just came up really quickly. Like, they just announced the date and it just dropped. I personally think he should have waited 2 or 3 more months to let all this hype from Cardi settle down, you know, just to let the dust settle. But you know, Cardi's also allegedly dropping a second album. Who knows if he's actually doing that? Maybe that has other plans. You know, Destroy Lonely has to drop. I don't know. You know, like Kanye with Good Music back in the day, he did this thing where everyone had to drop in a single month and had to be back to back to back. So it was like Designer, 070 Shake, forget who else, Kid Cudi maybe. I forget if it was Kid Cudi or Big Sean, and then it was like Kanye. Forget what it was, but you know, when everyone signed to the same label, that might have also played into it, but you really can't remember any moments. I don't know, there's like, do fit pics count? Like, not really, maybe a couple snippets. And you know, some people were really just hating hard. This is so unbelievably bad. If I were Ken Carson, I'd start applying for jobs right now. Okay, that's crazy. He fumbled so egregiously, not dropping More Chaos in October. Don't know what him and his people were thinking. LMFAO. To be honest, this is actually a good take in my opinion, because if you think about it, since October, what have they done to push him forward? Trying to think, nothing much. And it would have been cooler if, like, think about it. It would be impossible for Ken to have more hype than Cardi. Cardi would obviously overshadow Ken. You know what I'm saying? But maybe I'm thinking about it too. Maybe I'm just not thinking enough. You know, like he called Kai Cenat on stream and said, I want to link up for a stream. I mean, cool.
I just started it, motherfucker, Ken. I just started him. Happy birthday, bro. What the hell you doing, bro? We reacting to the album. I'm in the studio listening to him, yes, Sirski. Yeah. Hey, look. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Thank you, bro. We gonna link up, all right? And when I get that trap, my name's up. All right, say less. Yes, say less. Hell yeah, I'm already knowing. Hell yeah.
Now, the whole thing about this Kai Cenat Opium relationship is it's just like, look, it's cool. Kai Cenat's super cool. He's very animated. He has a huge audience of, you know, young impressionable teenagers who will be influenced by anything he does. If he starts, you know, munching all over opium, you know, they'll also start listening to all their music, which I get it. But I feel like Kai Cenat, everybody seen those memes where it's like, oh, Kai Cenat's music stylist told him this. You know, there's actually this clip of Kai Cenat's stream about More Chaos where he said, oh, these songs weren't really hitting as much to me. And all the comments were like, oh, his music stylist told him to say that. And honestly, they're probably not wrong. Kai probably got like a friend who's hip who's like, oh, this one's not that crazy, bro. Just let him know. So you seem like you know what you're talking about. And there are all these videos of Kai pretending to lip sync but not actually knowing the lyrics. And I don't know, you can just tell he's not like a real fan. I think that lack of authenticity, it's kind of lame, but not like a bad way. It's just like, I don't know, it's just so obviously transactional. And people like Cardi and Ken usually do this they do a really good job of like keeping up the curtains and veil of like, oh, everything's so cool. It's just like, this is like a straight like industry thing to me. You know what I mean? So I just don't even care. But maybe that's just me personally. Anyways, back to this Reddit stuff. Honestly, I thought the hype would be way bigger. He's much more mainstream than he was in 2023. Someone else said, Ken overestimated himself with his weak rollout. At least we know he will lock in for the next album, which is what matters most, since that is the one that'll bring the new sound. Yeah, I would say that as well. I think like every time Ken Carson has dropped recently, like his deluxe sold a lot. I think it sold like 25 or something K, 27K. And that's because like Sydney Sweeney, you guys remember that one? That snippet was going crazy to like Caitlin Clark edits on TikTok. And what was the other one? I forget the name, but you know. And before there was that Jennifer Bodies snippet and the Paranoids. Like he had a lot of snippets just go viral on TikTok before he even dropped, you know, almost similar to what happened to Yeet in his original run. And what everyone was saying was what a horrible rollout, lackluster rollout. And I don't know how to explain it. Like when I was, you know, while I was recording this video, I was kind of like thinking about things to critique in the rollout, but I wasn't even able to really like think of any memorable moments, and that would be the biggest critique to me. I mean, so there's not really much more to say. Someone else said, y'all gonna hate me, but AGC is so much better than More Chaos. I'm not saying More Chaos is bad, it's good. For me, More Chaos was a very good Ken album, but AGC was legit magic the first time I listened. So this is exactly what I was saying earlier with my point about how much the album differentiated itself from the past project. Y'all aren't understanding the meaning of More Chaos. Okay, we get it. It's still kind of lazy and not as, you know what I mean? It's like, cool. So anyways, overall, I'd give this like I'm gonna give it like a 6.5. I can't give it a 7. I'm gonna give it like a 6.5 just because it could have been crazier creatively. I feel like Ken got a little lazy with this. I like that he's, you know, back cool with Starboy and working with those producers. That was a nice touch. Out of town, he definitely did his thing. Like this isn't bad music, just not what fans are looking for, you know what I mean? And hopefully he can come crazier this next album. I'm guessing this next album is going to be like 2026, middle of 2026 or something, you know, or maybe even later. If I were him, I would really look for a single, like one single that I can drop in like 4, 5, 6 months. Maybe something like Overseas that's just undeniably good, goes crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like to be performed well, something like that. But yeah, other than that, not much really to say, you know. But anyways, peace. Thanks for watching and take care. Bye.